think about how we actually practice different things. And the first thing I'm going to do here is immediately introduce you to something called massed practice. And I'm not sure that the name of this actually gives it away, right? I want you to think about, let's say, a goal shooter in netball. She or he wants to practice their shooting technique, and they want to do this undefended. They're basically going to take a whole repeated bunch of shots. Imagine that every time I make one of these little dashes, that involves one shot. Mass practice is when we go shot, 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 shot. You're going to get bored of me shortly. And it just keeps going like this, okay? So I don't know how many I've done here, 10, 11, 12. Let's imagine, in fact, tell you what we'll do. I'll just do a couple more. This person just keeps going, going, going. You get the idea, okay? In other words, there are no breaks in between apart from effectively picking up the ball and shooting again, okay? So mass practice critically has no breaks between repetitions. And by the way, a really nice term for you, if you can use it in this environment, is to call a repetition a trial. This is a term you will come across as you study further in this area. Now, a trial is not maybe what you're thinking about as a sort of a legal trial or whatever, or trying to be good at something. It's simply an attempt. Okay, so each of these shots represents an attempt. So no breaks between those repetitions or trials. Secondly, we think this is really a good method for elite performers, good for elite. Sometimes we call these autonomous stage learners, but anyway, good for elite performers. So if you think about this, it means that it works really, really well for someone who's a top level performer. It's also good for fitter people. You know, obviously if you can keep going without having breaks, you'll do more repetitions per practice session, but if you're less fit, it's going to be difficult. And that was meant to be a good, by the way. And it's also good for motivated performers. So imagine a performer who's basically going to get on with this and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot without any kind of feedback, okay? Now, I mentioned the elite performers. I want to mention, of course, that these players would already have their own kinesthetic sense of the skill. In other words, if they make a mistake and maybe miss a few shots, they should be able to feel why that's happened and adjust it through their own experiences. It improves up arrow muscle memory. Just the repetitive nature of this will mean that this skill becomes more and more honed. Sometimes we call it overlearned. And we also think it improves consistency. So up arrow, it improves consistency of that particular skill. Now, I want you to compare that to what I'm going to do next. I'll try and leave that mass practice in the shot. So let's go to here. I now want to talk to you about distributed practice. And I wonder if you know what I'm going to say. Okay, distributed practice. If the mass was without breaks, what do you think distributed might be? And of course, in this scenario, we get trial, 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 break, trial, 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 break, trial, 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 break. And I could obviously go on like that. But the point we want to make is that this here and this here and this here, these are breaks in the repetitions or the trials. So what do we want to sort of like be really understanding about this? Well, we want the idea that there are breaks. I don't know why I've gone to purple, but let's stick with it. Breaks between repetitions, not necessarily every repetition. Again, we could go here and say that this reduces boredom. So if you think about the example at the top, the mass practice, it could really become quite repetitive, right? So this methodology allows something else to happen in between. It's also suitable for beginners. Okay, suitable for novices. I'm going to use the term novices. It's really good because novices can have a few goes, come back together, maybe discuss it or take some feedback, and then have another few goes. It's really good for recovery. So think about this for either people who are less fit or perhaps for an activity, let's say a trial of a 200-meter sprint. You're not going to do that twice back to back, right? We would do that with breaks in between. It's really good to provide time for feedback. So imagine, let's come back to our netball player. They take 4 shots and then their coach steps in and gives some verbal feedback or alternative forms of, verbal guidance, I should say, or they give some kind of extrinsic feedback. Also, it causes adaptability. Okay, and this is a nice word for you to use, adaptability. It allows the performer to actually adapt to the performance they have in slightly different scenarios. It's also, some of the negatives here, I'm going to put some negatives in here. It's less time efficient, so we could call it time inefficient. At the end of the day, you're going to do less practices, or less trials per unit of time. It doesn't replicate the actual scenario, folks. Obviously, having a break and chatting about it is not like what competition would actually be structured like. And also, it can cause a loss of focus, or momentum, we might want to put there. Loss of focus, momentum. So there are two clear distinctions between massed and distributed practice, but we're going to go a touch further. We're also going to talk here about fixed practice. Now, I want to be crystal clear here. Fixed practice can be either massed or distributed. You might think, hang on, what? So when we do fixed practice, we repeat a whole skill. Okay, we repeat a whole skill. Now we can do that with breaks or without breaks, but perhaps most importantly, we do it until it is perfected. What we're doing here is we're not introducing variability, we're not introducing defenders, we're not introducing opposition. It's really good for closed skills, so something like a golf shot, for example. It's really good for high organisation skills. So a skill that can't be broken down into subroutines would be well suited to a fixed environment. Furthermore, it's really good for simple skills. Okay, simple skills where there are few decisions that need to be made. We fix the environment, we repeatedly practice the whole skill over and over again in the same way. That's what we might do. Now, variable practice, to finish this off, is kind of the counter to that. So we are now looking at variable. Some people say varied practice. Now, variable kind of does what it says in the tin. It is practicing. Notice that practicing as a verb is with an S, by the way. Everyone gets this wrong. Practicing as a verb is with the S, the noun is the C. Practicing in a variety of situations. So this could be with defenders, with pressure. Or, you might start working on a skill in a fixed environment, then progress it to a more variable environment, different situations. And of course, that really links now to our open skills. So this would be like possession drills, working with defenders, working attack versus defense, this kind of thing. These are open skills. They're done in a variable environment where the environment changes over and over again. It's unstable, changeable environment. Variable practice is where we would do that. Thank you.